Mistakes happened. They were real, they were painful, and they were mine. I cannot deny them, hide them, or erase them from my story. There were moments when I fell short of expectations, my own and others. There were times when I tried and failed, when I believed I was ready but discovered I wasn't strong enough, prepared enough, or focused enough. I remember the sting of disappointment, the silence that follows bad news, and the heavy feeling of watching others move forward while I stood still. Failure has a way of making the world feel smaller. It whispers that maybe you are not good enough, not talented enough, not meant for something bigger. It tries to convince you that one mistake defines your entire identity. And for a while, I believed those whispers. I thought my failure was proof that I lacked something essential. I thought it was the end of my journey rather than a chapter in it. But over time, I began to understand something powerful. Mistakes are not the opposite of success, they are part of it. Every successful person you admire has faced failure. Behind every achievement is a story of struggle, doubt, and persistence. I realized that my mistake did not mean I was incapable, it meant I was learning. It meant I had stepped out of my comfort zone and dared to try. And daring to try is something many people never do. Failure is painful, yes, but it is also a teacher. It reveals weaknesses so they can be strengthened. It exposes gaps so they can be filled. It humbles you so you can grow. When I shifted my perspective, I stopped seeing my failure as a verdict and started seeing it as feedback. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" I began asking, "What can this teach me?" Improvement does not happen overnight. It is not dramatic or glamorous. It is quiet, repetitive, and often invisible to others. It begins with honesty, looking at yourself without excuses. I had to admit where I went wrong. I had to accept responsibility instead of blaming circumstances or other people. That was not easy. The ego resists accountability, but growth demands it. Once I took responsibility, I gained power. Because if I am responsible for my mistakes, I am also capable of correcting them. I started analyzing my weaknesses. Was I lacking discipline? Was I inconsistent? Did I give up too easily? Did I underestimate the effort required? Each answer, though uncomfortable, gave me direction. Improvement became my mission. I committed to learning more, practicing more, and pushing myself further than before. There were days when motivation was low and doubt returned. Change is challenging because it requires persistence without immediate reward. I had to wake up early when I wanted to sleep. I had to practice when I felt tired. I had to study when distractions called my name. I had to say no to comfort and yes to effort. Improvement demanded sacrifices, time, energy, entertainment, and sometimes even social approval. Not everyone understands your comeback journey. Some people remember your failure more clearly than your potential. Some quietly expect you to fail again, but I decided that their expectations would not define my limits. I made a promise to myself: I will not quit. I will not let one chapter decide my entire story. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action despite fear. After failing, fear becomes stronger. You fear repeating the same mistake. You fear embarrassment. You fear judgment. But I realized that avoiding action only guarantees regret. If I try again, I might fail. But if I don't try, I have already failed. That understanding changed everything. I began to see courage as a daily choice. Each time I showed up again, I was proving something, not to the world, but to myself. Each small improvement was a victory. Each disciplined day was a brick laid in the foundation of a stronger version of me. Progress was slow, but it was real. There is a unique strength that comes from rebuilding yourself. When you rise after failure, you rise with wisdom. You understand the cost of carelessness. You appreciate preparation. You respect the process. You stop chasing shortcuts because you know they lead to temporary results. Instead, you embrace consistency. I learned that success is not a sudden leap. It is the result of small efforts repeated daily. The world often celebrates the final result, but rarely sees the countless unseen hours behind it. I chose to fall in love with those unseen hours. While others were watching outcomes, I was building habits. While others were doubting my comeback, I was strengthening my mindset. Mindset is everything. The difference between someone who stays down and someone who rises often lies in belief. I had to rebuild my belief in myself. Not blind confidence, but earned confidence, the kind that comes from preparation. The kind that grows each time you keep a promise to yourself. I started setting small goals and achieving them. Each completed task became evidence that I was capable. Slowly, the narrative in my mind changed. Instead of saying, "I failed," I began saying, "I am improving." Instead of saying, "I can't," I began saying, "I am learning how." Words matter because they shape thoughts, and thoughts shape actions. There were setbacks along the way. Improvement is not a straight line. Sometimes I slipped back into old habits. Sometimes results were still disappointing. But this time, I did not interpret setbacks as proof of weakness. I saw them as part of the process. Growth is messy. It involves trial and error. The key difference now was resilience. Before, failure stopped me. Now it strengthened me. Before, criticism discouraged me. Now it guided me. I stopped fearing mistakes because I understood they were stepping stones. Each error refined my strategy. Each obstacle strengthened my endurance. I also learned patience. In a world that demands instant success, patience feels outdated. But real transformation takes time. Seeds do not become trees overnight. Muscles do not grow after one workout. Skills do not develop after one attempt. I had to trust the process even when results were invisible. There were moments when I questioned whether my effort would ever pay off. But deep down, I knew something had already changed. I was no longer the person who gave up easily. I was no longer defined by a single failure. I was becoming someone disciplined, focused, and determined. Showing the world does not necessarily mean standing on a stage or announcing victory loudly. Sometimes, showing the world simply means refusing to quit. It means letting your results speak over time. It means allowing your growth to silence doubts. I no longer felt the need to argue with people about my potential. I chose to demonstrate it through action. Improvement became my language. Consistency became my statement. Hard work became my response to doubt. And slowly, opportunities began to appear. Doors that once seemed closed started to open. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because I did. One of the most powerful realizations in this journey was understanding that failure is not humiliation unless you refuse to learn from it. In fact, there is honor in trying again. There is strength in admitting, "I was not good enough then, but I am better now." That honesty builds character, and character is more valuable than temporary success. Through this process, I developed discipline, resilience, humility, and self-awareness. These qualities are not visible trophies, but they are the foundation of lasting achievement. I wanted to prove something, not out of pride, but out of purpose. I wanted to prove that failure does not have the final word. I wanted to prove that courage can outlast disappointment. I wanted to prove that determination can rewrite outcomes. But more than proving it to the world, I needed to prove it to myself. The greatest battle was internal. Once I conquered self-doubt, external challenges became manageable. Once I believed in my ability to grow, obstacles became temporary rather than permanent. Looking back, I am almost grateful for the mistake that once hurt me so deeply. It forced me to confront my weaknesses. It pushed me beyond complacency. It awakened a hunger to improve. Without that failure, I might have remained average, comfortable, and unaware of my true potential. Sometimes life shakes you not to break you, but to wake you. My failure was my awakening. It was the moment I realized that success is not guaranteed, but growth is always possible. Now, when I think about the journey, I no longer see a story of failure. I see a story of transformation. I see someone who stumbled but chose to rise. I see someone who faced embarrassment but chose courage. I see someone who could have quit but chose persistence. That choice, to continue despite fear, is the turning point in any story, and it is available to anyone willing to embrace it. I stand today not as someone who never failed, but as someone who refused to stay down. My mistakes do not define me, my response to them does. I am still improving. I am still learning. I am still growing. The journey continues. But one thing is certain: I did not lose courage. I did not surrender to doubt. I took my failure, studied it, learned from it, and used it as fuel. And step by step, day by day, I proved, not just to the world, but to myself, that I could do it.